All right. Here we are. We're having a chat today with our friend Allison. We're still on the topic of postpartum depression. We're just making a little video here of just us chatting today. So glad you could join us, Allison.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Janet,
Super
for
cool.
giving me that time.
You're a brave woman, and that's the thing that I've noticed is so many of my acquaintances, they're so brave, because who wants to be recorded and talk about things that are kind of near and dear to your heart? Nobody. But I love that you will be willing to talk about miscarriages. Um, so it's mainly about miscarriages and infertility. Allison, you have a couple girls, so it really, if just ignore us. And as we were talking earlier, Elise and I and a couple other friends have started this nonprofit organization that we support women and we support each other through postpartum depression or depression and anxiety in general. And our goal is to help people get the support that they need in a free way, in an easy way, before they end up in a emergency situation, because nobody wants to end up in the psych ward or just shut down. And so we're trying to get support over the social media platforms and in person, and hopefully one day we'll have a place, an actual little cabin or something that a woman could go to with her baby and get actual support physically with postpartum depression. And that's our goals. So yeah, so this is our interview about the miscarriages. Allison, I think maybe it's the post that I saw you post about miscarriages. And I when I was going over again the list of emotions and things with a miscarriage, and I thought about you, and it must have been that post that I saw that, because you and I haven't talked in person, but I thought that we could just kind of focus on what you've experienced and maybe the emotions that go with it. And the only ones that I have written down that I think that are pretty pertinent is some women mourn in silence, and that to me is not as productive as talking about the guilt they may feel, or the fear, or the confusion, the heartbreak, the isolation, all of those things. That is, if you speak it, you can heal a lot easier. So I was just going to ask you kind of what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, so before Ariana, I actually had 3 early miscarriages. But because they're so early, when they're early on, you don't have as much of an excuse, I feel like, to talk about it and to be sad about it. People are like, oh, well, how far along were you? That's the first question.
Yeah.
But there's something to just being pregnant or not and losing a baby. There's a connection there that it's really unexplainable. And so when people ask, well, how far along was it? And that kind of determines how big of a deal it was. That it's somehow just, it's not about that. It's about the loss. And I think we really don't understand why it is the way it is and the connection that we have. I think that's something we'll probably figure out later. But But I had a really hard time with those, and I actually didn't really talk about them much because, like I said, people ask how far along were you, and you're like, yeah, it wasn't really a big deal, super early on. And
hey,
then
Allison, can I interrupt real quick? I read that there was a study done that it really had nothing to do with how far along you were for all these emotions that you go through and for the attachment. They did a study that showed that women get attached just a week, like And I love that you brought up that people automatically ask, how far along were you? You know what? That's kind of code word for, well, the baby didn't have a heartbeat yet, or the baby, blah, blah, blah. You didn't feel it moving. Yes. I love that point you brought up, because we've never even, right, Elise? We've never even thought about that. But that's the first question that one of us will ask when somebody says, yeah, I just lost a baby. The first thing, oh, how far along? And that almost gives that mom not permit, she's almost judging herself and going, why am I making a big deal out of this? I was only a month along.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on, Allison. I won't interrupt again. That was just.
Yeah. And so then once I had my 12-week miscarriage, which I'm not saying that it's not harder, definitely it gets harder for sure, but
Okay.
it doesn't make it any less hard, those little ones, because like you said, there's just something to that connection that you can't explain. You can't explain to someone the pain that you're feeling because you don't really understand it yourself. But yeah, people kind of, there's this scale of like, okay, how much do we need to help the person? How much are they going to need physical help now? Are they going to need, and so you kind of have to be like, yeah, okay, well, we'll be moved on here pretty quick if it's an early on one, but after my 12-week one, I was devastated, just completely devastated from, obviously, it brings up everything else too that I hadn't processed, the other three, and you have put so much time and so much energy and thought process, and you feel like you know this person because of how long you've actually put in your thinking of who they're going to be, who they are. And I feel like you do kind of connect when you're pregnant. You change. Everyone says you change a little bit, you like tacos now or now you don't, like depending on the pregnancy, and you really take on some of that person, and it feels like they're just ripped from you, and then you don't even know who you are anymore. You're all of a sudden just, you feel so alone. And one of the most heartbreaking parts about how far along you are when people not understanding that is, I had some after my 12-week miscarriage that were early on, but they were strangely almost as devastating, because I can't understand it myself, but
Yeah.
you get so low, and people are
Hopeless.
just like, oh, well, you weren't, I did start to get hopeless. That was, I had lost, and then my 12-week baby, and then we were told to wait 3 months. And so we waited the 3 months to try again, and then we lost again, and then we lost again. And it was really, really, I did get into kind of some despair there. And it's hard because, I don't want to make like anybody feel guilty, and it's no one's responsibility to make me happy and at peace. And I actually did get a lot of support, and I felt a lot of peace, but I did feel like those early on ones, I didn't feel like I could really talk to anybody about, because they're dismissed so easy.
Right. Yeah. I think that what just listening to you talk and the way that we as moms, we expect something to happen. You said we change, our mind just changes, our way of thinking. We think about this person, who they're going to be. We think about how our whole family dynamic is going to change. We, like you're saying, we just put so much thought into it that when we do lose the baby at any stage, you're almost grieving because you're lost that expectation. You have this great, grand, beautiful expectation, and then it's just gone. And it's to me, like, grief just keeps coming into my mind. Like, we grieve losing someone, even though we didn't get to meet them. We knew about them, we expected them, we
felt their spirit with us.
Yeah. And had that anticipation of them coming, and then we have this huge letdown. yeah, it feels like, even if we have support and we have people who love us and give us support during that time, we're still going through that grieving process, and it's hard. And like you were saying, when it's early on, it's hard to talk about or describe, unless someone else has gone through it. Yeah, it's hard to describe to someone who has no idea what it's like.
Allison, you mentioned something that really reminded me. Um, we kind of set ourselves up, us women, we set ourselves up to mourn in silence or to disregard our grief, because we don't tell people we until we're like 3 months along. We're told, don't tell anybody till you're about 3 months along. And that's because if you miscarry, then you won't have to tell anybody you miscarried. But that's kind of crazy, because it puts you in a box of being alone and not being able to speak about your grief, which is the biggest way of healing, is speaking about it.
Yeah.
Every time you talk about it, you heal more layers of that grief. And so I don't like that. I want to shout it from the rooftops when a woman is excited about getting pregnant. Her natural instinct is to just share that excitement with all her friends, right?
Yeah.
And I want people to still do that, because then if she miscarries, she gets to tell them and speak about it, instead of just hide and mourn in silence and alone in isolation. But yeah, I was visiting with a gal that was dealing with depression and anxiety, and she had a miscarriage at, I think she was 1 month, and she was so disregarded because of that she couldn't talk to anybody, because everybody around her just disregarded it, you know. And so it is amazing how bonded she was with that little soul already. It is just amazing. It's fascinating to see the bond with the mom and the baby.
Yeah. I've always felt the same way about that. That's one thing I've been glad that I have told at least some people every single time, right off. For one, I'm not that good at secrets, and that's one I just don't want to ever be good at. I like to share it instantly, and I think it's so sad. I've heard lots of women talk about how, they'll be talking about someone else and be like, oh, they're announcing, like they're kind of miscarriages, or they want to, then they'll just have to retell everybody, and it's like, okay, well, you can either have all those people supporting you and helping you, and it's just, even if people don't know.
I missed that part. What did you just barely say, Allison?
Just that, even if, it's nice to know that people know, even if they don't come up to you and talk to you about it, just feeling like, maybe you're having a bad day and you're like, oh, this is probably because I'm depressed because of my miscarriage.
Yeah.
But nobody will understand that. And so you feel like you just have to, buck up and be normal. And you can't have a bad day because you don't have a reason to. And people they won't let you get away with it either. They'll,
Oh, I love it. I think that you can shed some light on, even though we have talked to quite a few people about miscarriages and stuff, every time I talk to somebody, I get a new appreciation and understanding of it. And I love that you mentioned that you do have a lot of loved ones and support, although it does make it harder for this and that. It's like you're very grateful and you acknowledge the love and support you have, but you're giving us pointers of ways that we could do differently.
Something that someone said to me right after I had my 12-week miscarriage. I don't remember who it was, but I had lost a lot of blood from the miscarriage. And so I was down for a really long time afterwards. And the first time that I got out, I was still such a mess. I was like, I really want to get out. I wanted to go watch the girls play basketball. And so that was the first time that I went somewhere. Someone came and picked me up and took me over there. And I was just going to sit and watch just, for some entertainment. And I knew that if somebody talked to me about it or said anything on the subject, I was just going to start bawling.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hopefully nobody even just talks to me. I just want to come here and watch. And somebody, I guess, came and talked to me, and they're like, are you not feeling good? Like, they hadn't heard that I miscarried. Like, are you not feeling good? Why aren't you playing? Just kind of like, well, what are you doing here? Like, then someone else told them, they're like, she just miscarried. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? And that's one of the questions I feel like women don't really know what to say there, because they don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable and just break down bawling. But someone else was there, and they were like, they saw me hesitating, and they were like, just say you're not right now, but you will be eventually. And so helpful, because you can leave it on a positive. You don't have to push all of that on somebody else, but you can be honest with your feelings. And
wow, that's a good point. Wow, I've got to write that down.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, that's always makes people hard to answer whenever it's uncomfortable. People don't know what to say. That's, I think, when you kind of open the door for people to say the wrong thing. Say, no, I'm not okay. I'm having this really hard time. And then they try to scramble because they're uncomfortable too. And they're like, oh, well, you weren't that far along, or you weren't, this or that. And yeah, I love that, I'm not right now, but I will be,
I will be. I will get better. And so saying those words, actually, for somebody that's kind of deep in grief and just in the trenches, for them to speak that actually is very self-empowering. No, I'm not right now. You're being truthful with your heart, but I will get better. Like, that's very encouraging.
Yeah.
And sometimes speaking the encouraging things is actually more powerful than just thinking it. So, when you speak it out loud, it has a lot of power. And that is, I'm going to use that one, Allison. I love it. Because I'm sure I've asked people too, are you okay? Like, what's a better way? I'm sorry. A better response is, I am sure sorry about that. And just, what can I do for you? I mean, what can people do for other people?
I feel like this might just be me, but asking what can I do for you is not very helpful, and it almost puts just pressure in a conversation that you're not even going to end up having. Like, you're not going to tell someone what you need. But I did find it so healing. I had so many girls come to my house and visit me and just bring me green drink or bring me snacks, or and I hadn't even told any of these women. It got around the community while I was down, and people just brought me things. They didn't ask to come over. They just came over, and it was women that could relate, so they wanted to talk about it, and that was probably the most healing. It's like, wow, thank you. Support from it was helpful. Women that hadn't gone through it as well, just feeling the love is very healing. And like you said, that community feeling that you get, like, okay, I'm not just alone in this. But it was very helpful. The women that had experienced it, even just to see them show up and just the look in their eyes that they're like, we didn't even have to talk about it. It was like, I get it. I know the pain you're feeling, and I'm here for you. It was very, very helpful. So,
Allison, we are so lucky to have a community. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I just want to say to any of the women that are listening, if you have gone through it and you didn't have support, be that woman for somebody else and go be there for someone. Take them snacks, take them flowers, take them chocolate, take them a sad movie or a funny movie or both. And because it really does help just to feel the love from so many people. I felt so much peace just knowing that I was loved.
Oh, that's such good advice. I love it. Okay. That is really cool. Just being there, just being in your circle, in your space is important, isn't it? That is so cool. I remember after a miscarriage, I had my sister knew that I was miscarrying, and she called, and it was perfect timing because I just barely got done with the miscarriage, and it was very painful, and it was like a labor. And then I had a midwife there, which was so sweet that a midwife would come over because I'd never had a miscarriage before, and I didn't know that it would be actually painful, that it could be like giving birth. But my sister called right after, and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry you're going through this." And she chatted for a minute, and she said, "Hey, can I bring something to you?" And I'm like, "Sure." And she said, "Do you still love pecan pie and ice cream?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it was kind of the weirdest thing for somebody to bring over to me, but she brought it over and brought it right onto my bed, and we just had a little picnic right on my bed. And it was so healing. Like, we sat there and laughed and ate a sugary treat that was my favorite treat. And she stuck around for a while, and then she kept coming back and visiting. But it was just so refreshing to just have someone pop in and do something so nice. So I really get that. I'm from the old school, and we never talked about miscarriages. We really didn't. And it was just, you just deal with it quietly. And if you're lucky, you talk to your husband about it and let him know. But it was not something that you talk to other people about because it's too personal. But boy, I love how things are now, where people are willing to be honest with what they're experiencing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That is so hard. Would have been so hard.
Yeah, but this was back in the time when we were in the era where um, if when you're having your baby and you make sounds like moaning sounds or whatever, breathing sounds that's maybe louder than your normal breathing, then my mom would say, "Oh, you better keep it quiet." Oh, now we know so much better. We know that those sounds are very important because it helps women get the energy they need, right? Anyway, I love our modern age right now, where people are willing to talk about things that are tough.
Yeah, it's not talked about enough. It's one thought that came through my mind that, if you're one of those people that feel like you want to keep it secret or on the down low for a little while, for 3 months, like, I don't know, after having so many kids, announcing it just doesn't seem as urgent. So I've got 5. And so if I were to get pregnant again, I wouldn't be like, hey, guess what?
You better tell me.
After so many people. And so, like, I would probably be one of those people, like, by my 3rd or 4th kid, I didn't even announce it on Facebook, and I had the baby, and people are like, "You were what? You were pregnant?" Like, if they weren't at circle, they didn't even know, because I didn't make a big deal on Facebook about it. And so, just the thought, like, if you are one of those people that don't want to share right away, which is fine, everyone's different, just make sure that you have a circle or group of friends and support that you're willing to tell if you do miscarry.
Yeah.
Don't suffer in silence just because you felt like you didn't want to tell it. You need to have that group of people that you're willing to contact and be like, "Hey, I was pregnant. I'm going through a miscarriage," and getting that tribe. You need that tribe of family and friends to get support from, because people can't support us if they don't know.
Yeah, so true, so true. I do think that's our responsibility as a mom that's had a miscarriage, or or dealing with infertility, I think it's our responsibility to speak up and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And hopefully the people around you will handle that really carefully. Allison, I was thinking about the fact that you're in a community that is just all about families and babies. And so I imagine that it would be extremely hard to be in a community that everybody just has babies so easily, and that it's been a struggle for you guys, you know, to just get pregnant right off and keep the pregnancy.
Yeah, so I actually, with this last baby, with Jade, then I decided to do testing, hormone testing, blood tests, basically to see where my hormones were at, and I was able to figure out that my progesterone would be fine, and then as soon as the egg would implant, then my progesterone would just drop. And so with the 12-week miscarriage, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just, I think it ran out slowly. And so that's why I was able to keep it for so long. But I was able to figure out that's what my problem was. And so now that I know that, I'm like, hey, anytime someone's struggling with miscarriages, have you tested to see if your progesterone is low? Because that's going to be a reoccurring problem for sure if that's an issue for you, and you can heal that. People have told me that it's your thyroid, and that if you can heal your thyroid, then you won't have to do the synthetic progesterone anymore. But I had to do so first I tried like the topical creams, you know, the natural creams, wild yam extract, and that didn't work for me. I tried several different ones, and this is still with Jade. So I was doing testing every couple days to see if the creams were working or what I needed to do. And I had to get extreme and just go get prescribed synthetic progesterone. But I was so thankful that I had a doctor that, so I chose to get the doctor that actually did the D&C on my 12-week miscarriage, because I wanted someone who understood what I went through. And
yeah,
I actually ended up really liking her too. She was very sweet. And I wanted her to know, like, hey, I'm so serious about how I can keep this pregnancy. Like, I am so dead serious. We got to figure out whatever this is. And so I just called her up on the phone. I hadn't even seen her yet, because at this point I was only 4.5 weeks pregnant. And I was like, I got to figure something out or I'm going to lose this baby, because my progesterone just dropped super low. It had dropped to a 5. And I was like, oh no, like, it's probably already too late. I'm in tears at this point. I'm like, look, if I get something right now, I'm going to lose this baby. And she was very sweet. And she just trusted me. And she was like, hey, I can see, you know, a lot of doctors, they have to see you and they want to personally test you. I wasn't doing testing for her. I was doing testing through a midwife.
Wow.
And through someone that was closer to me so that I could get fast results. And she prescribed me some, and actually a friend, so that I could instantly start taking. A friend had some left over from when they had taken some, and so I instantly got some and went and got my own too. And I was just so thankful, because I just know that I wouldn't have her today if I hadn't figured that out. And I feel like it was kind of a miracle. I don't know how I didn't lose her with such low progesterone, because we're talking, I was at 25 and I dropped to a 5. Like, that's such a significant dip that I should have lost her. But I didn't, and now I know, and I want to be able to figure out how to heal my thyroid, which that's been my goal. I just haven't gotten on it yet.
Yeah.
But you can do that through different places will heal your thyroid for you and work with you. I'll do testing. So that's my goal next, is to try to actually heal my thyroid.
That is so cool.
It's such a common problem for women is the progesterone. So if you're having miscarriages repeated, please go get tested. And you need to test every couple days. You need to test before you get pregnant. So right as you're gonna
ovulate.
ovulate, and then you need to test right after, every couple days, up to implantation, and continue after that to make sure that you're rising. You should still be rising that whole time. And if you're not, you need to figure out how to get progesterone. A lot of doctors are actually kind of, they want to kind of let stuff play out and see what happens. And you kind of got to be bossy and be like, hey, I know that I lose this baby. I've been dealing with miscarriage. Prescribe it to me. That's what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you took control of your own health and kind of, your doctor's there, you're paying the doctor to do what you want them to do for you. And you just got, kind of like have to get really serious with them in their face almost. Was it bioidentical hormones therapy? Was it kind of like the bioidentical hormone therapy?
What is that?
They have like synthetic hormone therapy, but they make it really close to your own natural hormone as much as they can.
I actually don't know. It was basically just a pill form.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That is so cool. Your doctor would snap too and just give you that prescription, right? It was probably a prescription.
It is, yep.
Yeah.
I was so happy because I had been told by other people who had the same experience. They're like I don't know if you'll be able to get any, because my doctor wouldn't give me any unless they had tested themselves. And so obviously too, it's important to find, if you're someone who wants to work a more natural route and try to figure out how to actually, if you want to be able to put a lot of input in, you do need to find a doctor that is open-minded and not so, because there's a lot of doctors that are super, I'm not against hospitals or doctors. Both my babies were born in the hospital. But I do know that there's definitely some doctors I wouldn't want to work with. And so, and I feel also right now women are, they're not told as much that you can be choosy with who your doctor is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't like the care that you're getting, just switch. And I know that that's awkward. It's super awkward, but it's whether you're going to be comfortable through your whole pregnancy and birth versus not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Wow, those are some good pointers.
That's one of my soapboxes, is that I feel like we are raised in a society that is like, you have to listen to the doctor or that's it. Like that you are almost a prisoner to a doctor or a hospital. And it just makes me kind of like, so like, you're supposed to be here to help us. Why would you make people feel that way? And I want to encourage everybody that you are not subject to your doctor. You are not, he or she is not in control of you. A hospital is not in control of you.
Yeah.
One thing that I heard recently is someone said, if you are asking for something, if you're asking for a treatment because you know it's right for you and you want it, and if they refuse, that you can tell them, okay, I want you to record that you treatment for me, that you refuse to give me the treatment that I was asking for. Mm-hmm. And then if they still continue to not, ask to be transferred. If you're stuck in the hospital because you're sick and they're not giving you the treatment that you need, ask to be transferred, or someone to come get you and take you to a different hospital. You are not prisoner there.
That's cool.
You are free to leave. Like they will fight tooth and nail to make sure you don't leave because they don't want you to be in danger. But if you plan to go somewhere else because you're not getting the care that you want, just go. Just say, I'm sorry that you're not taking care of me the way that I want, and so I need to get somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's some really good points. I have two sisters that are RNs, and they said that it just blows their mind how women just go, mainly women, men do this too, but they go into the hospital and they talk to their doctors and then their doctors do different things and they don't say anything. They complain to each other, but they don't say anything to the doctor and say, no, wait a minute, that's not what I talked about to you. So I love, Allison, that you reminded us that you're kind of in control. It's your body. I think the reason we get weird about switching doctors or getting a different opinion is because they know us so intimately that you're like, oh, great, now I'm going to have to start from square one with this one. You know, and the thing is, though, is you have records that you can take to another doctor, so they don't really have to start with square one. But you almost think they're your friend, like, but you're paying them buku bucks to be your friend, right? And you can just still be their friend and go find a different doctor.
Yeah. I think there's just that element of control also. Like, even if you don't like them, if they're not your friend, there's still that element of like, they're smarter, they know what they're doing, they're in a position of power.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's very
a
true.
very psychological thing.
Especially if it's your first birth and you don't know anything. You've never been there before. You've never birthed the baby. You don't know what you're doing. You assume that they know and that your body doesn't know. And
that's so true.
To not trust your intuition.
That is a really good point, to trust your intuition. As a woman, you feel the things that need to happen more than the doctor would if you're in tune with that, you know? So that's a good point, Allison. Trust your intuition. Be okay with changing doctors or demanding that they give you a certain medicine or therapy that you know you need. I'm really glad you got assertive with your doctor, Allison, and just said, look, I need that prescription. I need it now.
Yeah,
we don't have time to test.
I love her. So her name is Dr. Ashley Lane in Bolivar, and I would suggest her to anyone. She's amazing.
Dr. who?
Ashley Lane.
Oh yeah, I know her. Yeah, she's a good one.
Really? You know this one?
Yeah, I haven't had her as my doctor, but she's in the same clinic that I use.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know what, Allison, when we're done visiting, which we probably should be done pretty quick, but you're going to think of all kinds of things that you were like, oh, I should have said this, or if you're anything like me. Mm-hmm. And if you do, and you want to do another video, we would love it. Because this conversation could go on. We could have conversations about all the ins and outs of so many different dynamics. Don't you think, Elise? Like, I never get tired of talking about this. And I think it's, childbirth is so, so powerful. And it's so, we are so lucky. We're so blessed to be able to have children and to be able to talk about the different experiences with it. So if you want to do another one, we sure are willing to do that, because just Elise and I doing a video, it just gets really boring. I mean, no offense, Elise, but we think that when people watch the video of just me and Elise, then it's like, oh, but it is nice to have an input from somebody else. So cool.
Yeah, it's always great to have other perspective and stories, and people help us remember, oh yeah, I would have never thought to talk about that. It's so important. So we really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Super cool. I love seeing your little girls there, and one was on your lap and one was moving around in the background. That's so cool. That's awesome. Well, it's so good to see you guys and hang out and chat. I could do it for a long time, but I'm just looking at the time on our video and going, oh man, that might be a pretty long video. I love you guys. Let's chat again.
Okay.
Right.
See ya.
Bye.